Imagine a house party where every guest is crammed into a single living room. You're bumping elbows, spilling drinks, and fighting for breathing room. It feels suffocating, and the consensus among the crowd is that the house is simply too small. But if you step outside and look through the windows, you realize the house is actually massive. There's a kitchen, a basement, and a yard, all completely empty. The problem is that the doors to those rooms are deadbolted shut from the inside. This is the current state of the American city. While we face a national shortage of nearly 2 million homes, the struggle isn't a lack of physical land, but a lack of permission to use it. This data reveals our true spatial priorities. While we are short 2 million places for people to live, we have built nearly 2 billion parking spaces for our vehicles. That averages out to 8 empty stalls for every single person in the country. Our housing shortage is an artificial constraint. We possess the land, but current laws prevent us from building on it. These constraints began in the mid-20th century, when local zoning codes started requiring developers to reserve massive tracts of urban land exclusively for idle cars. This policy effectively shrank the usable footprint of the city. Building this storage is a massive capital expense. In a modern development, constructing multi-level parking adds between $35,000 and $73,000 to the cost of every single apartment. This chart breaks down how that debt is transferred to the resident. These construction costs increase average rents by 17%, adding a parking premium of roughly $200 to a monthly lease. The spatial result is that in major hubs like Los Angeles, parking now consumes 14% of all incorporated land. These mandates frequently kill new housing before it can be built. Developers often abandon projects on small urban lots because they cannot physically fit the legally required parking stalls into the building's footprint. By mandating car storage over human habitation, these rules create a physical barrier that prices the middle class out of their own neighborhoods. Economists explain the shape of our cities using the Alonzo Muth-Mills model. It posits that people compete for expensive central housing because commuting from the cheaper periphery is too slow and too expensive. This creates a time tax. Vast amounts of affordable land remain unusable because they are trapped behind hours of highway gridlock, isolating the city center from the regions around it. Autonomous vehicle fleets operating as shared robo-taxis provide a path to reclaim that land. Shared mobility shifts the spatial math of the city. If we move from private ownership to shared fleets, the required parking-to-car ratio could drop from 8-to-1 down to an efficient 1-to-1, freeing thousands of acres of asphalt for new homes. We are also seeing the emergence of advanced air mobility, electric aircraft called eVTOLs that can take off and land vertically. By utilizing the air, these vehicles bypass ground-level congestion entirely. This radically expands the distance a worker can travel within a 15-minute commute. This increase in speed effectively brings distant, lower-cost land into the viable housing market for the first time. Together, these technologies flatten the geography of the city, turning once isolated rural zones into accessible residential options. However, a flying taxi or a self-driving fleet is a hollow innovation if local laws still require 14% of the city to be reserved for empty cars. A breakthrough in transportation requires a corresponding shift in zoning for a city to actually grow. Innovation creates the opportunity, but policy allows the construction. The impact of this shift is already visible. When Los Angeles relaxed parking requirements for older downtown buildings, the change immediately facilitated the conversion and construction of 6,500 new housing units. Solving the housing crisis requires more than just better tech. It requires removing the legal deadbolts that hold urban land hostage. Combining these transportation breakthroughs with land use reform shifts the core economic incentives for building in our cities. Currently, a typical Californian needs an income of over $111,000 to afford a median home. By expanding the supply of accessible land, we can drop that required income into the $60,000 range, bringing homeownership within reach for 40 million more American households over the next 2 decades. We are choosing between two futures, a status quo of worsening gridlock and scarcity, or a reclaimed city where underutilized asphalt is replaced by housing for the next generation. The health of our cities depend on redesigning our legal and spatial operating system. We must open the locked doors, allow our population to spread out, and finally reclaim our space.